All right, we're back. So here's what I wanted to say to you. This is the conversation I was having with Sifu Claude. We were talking about mindsets. And what was interesting is we just, we rekindled our relationship. We start chatting, and it's almost as if he and I had been keeping in touch for the past decade or so. So I was talking to him about some of the challenges I've been facing in life and in business and et cetera, and the way I was approaching those challenges. And he said something to me, and it really stuck, and I want to share it with you. He said to me, when you become a champion, your mindset has to change. So I was like, well, what are you talking about? He says, and it's true, the mindset of a challenger and the mindset of a champion are different. When you're a challenger to the throne, when you're the challenger to the belt, the challenger to the championship, you think in a different way. You think like a challenger, which means you're going to take the little resources that you have, you're going to make the best of them, you're going to take risks, because you can. You're a challenger, you're not a champion. No one's looking at you. So you can take risks, you can try and find and maneuver a way to get yourself into the ring so that you can fight for the championship. And that's true for anything. It's true for fighters, it's true for business people. Like if you're an entrepreneur and you start a small business and it's a little challenger business, you have to think like a challenger. You're going to use guerrilla marketing and different tactics to get people's attention because you're a challenger. If you're a fighter, you're going to think like a challenger, right? If the way a challenger thinks is different. Then he said to me, when you become the champion, your mindset has to change because you're now in a different place. You're now at the top. You're at the throne. And two things happen when you become the champion. The first is, unlike being a challenger, when you become the champion, you no longer have what they call the bottom man's goodwill. Guys, just listen to this because this shook me. See, when you're the underdog, people love underdogs. So people love the fact that you're coming up because you're the underdog. But natural to the fact, when you become the champion, by definition, you're not the underdog anymore. And people's mindset to you will change. Woo! Listen to this. Here's the thing though. People's mindset to you will change, but you won't change. And you won't understand why people have changed towards you. They've changed because you're not the challenger anymore. You're not the underdog anymore. You're now the champion. So they can't tell the story of the come up because you're up now. The story is not you're coming up. You're now number one. Does that make sense? So if you want to analyze it, this is kind of like why the media in South Africa immediately turned against the ANC when the ANC won power. It's because you're not the challenger anymore. You're now number one. Think about the people that you support. Sports people, business people. If you pick up a magazine and you're reading a romantic story about a challenger, you love that story. But if you pick up a magazine and read about a CEO of a company listed on the JSE, you're like, it's meh. Why? Because the champion story just doesn't have the character, the allure, the depth, the, what's the word I'm looking for? The romance, the sizzle, the va-va-voom, the zing. It doesn't have the zing of a challenger story. So two things happen when you become a champion. The first is you lose the goodwill of the bottom man. You lose the goodwill of the man at the bottom of the rung who's coming up. The second thing that happens is probably the most true. And it is this. How you conduct yourself is now framed by society, no longer by you. Because you're a champion. So the rules of how you should behave are framed by how people expect a champion to behave. It has nothing to do now with how you want to behave. It has everything to do with how people say you should behave. That's why you hear people go, president shouldn't talk like that. The CEO shouldn't be behaving like that. The champion of this and this shouldn't be behaving like that. The coach shouldn't be behaving like that. The captain shouldn't be doing that. Because people go, if you're at this position, you shouldn't. They're applying their normative values determined by themselves in society to determine your behavior. You shouldn't be behaving like that. And so what that does is it really, really like messes you up. And if you don't get that right in your head, you're finished. You're absolutely finished. So anyway, so we're having this conversation, Sifu and I. Then Sifu says to me, this blows me away. He says, the worst thing you can do when you're a champion is try to get people to love you like a challenger. And the worst thing you can do when you're a champion is try to behave like a challenger. You're a champion. You're not a challenger. So stop trying to behave like one. When you walk into the room, you got to bring the energy of a champion. When you're doing stuff, you got to conduct yourself like the champion. You're number one. You can't think and behave like the challenger. And here's why. Like, of all the things I've said, and I know there's been like some bars, this is going to be the one that hits you. Here's why. Every single champion in every single sport and every single pursuit that has continued to behave like a challenger loses their championship. Oh, Jessica, I want to say it again. I'm going to say it again. In the words of TD Jakes, it's the Holy Ghost. It's the Holy Ghost. I'm going to say it again. Every single champion in every single pursuit that has continued to behave like a challenger loses their championship. The reason Mike Tyson lost his championship the first time round to Buster Douglas was because Mike Tyson was being reckless and behaving like a challenger. Every single champion that continues to behave like a challenger, you will lose your championship. What happened with Conor McGregor when he started acting like a challenger and being reckless and drinking and throwing chairs at people and getting arrested? He lost. Every single champion that behaves like a challenger will lose their championship. You are a champion. You are not a challenger anymore. Stop behaving like one. Oh man, that's the word for today. Like I'm gonna take the rest of the year off. I'm done. I'm taking the rest of the year off. I'm giving myself the rest of the year off. I'm going on leave because that is the most powerful insight ever. Like when Sifu Klo said it to me, I was like, holy shit, what? Say that again? Says to me, Vusi, you're the champion. Don't behave like a challenger. Because if you behave like a challenger being a champion, you'll destroy yourself. And that's what people want you to do. You'll destroy yourself. Now, I know a lot of you watching this are challengers, but I also know that even more of you are champions. Champions in your own life, in your own pursuits, champions in how you conduct yourself in your businesses, in your professions, in your family, in your academic pursuits. You're just a champion. And you have to remember that when you're a champion, you don't have the benefit of behaving like a challenger anymore. You're number one. Act right. Act right. In the words of Dr. Dre, act right. All right, I'm gonna leave it there, y'all. Have an amazing day. I'm on my way to the place where sanity prevails. Cheers.